Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash of Clans, and today is such an exciting day. I finally have gotten an employee of Supercell to come on the channel and talk Clash of Clans with me. I am so excited to welcome Darian, the new community manager for Clash of Clans. Darian, welcome to the channel.
Thank you. Thank you. It's actually great to be here.
I'm so happy to have you on. I reached out to you and was shocked and thrilled when you agreed to come on. I have so many things that I want to talk about, so let's just hop right into it. And first, Let's get to know you a little bit. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved, or how you got a job, I guess, working at Supercell, and what it's been like so far.
Experience-wise, I mean, just working here has been it's been a very different experience, given that I come from a very traditional corporate background, even within the gaming industry. I was a biomedical engineering major in college.
Wow.
Everybody in my family, from my brother to my cousins, we were all told we were going to become doctors when we grew up, because I come from a long line of medical doctors, and all of us dropped out of med school to work in the video game industry. So it kind of became the new family business.
No way. That's cool.
Yeah, and so the last 10 years I've been in the industry. Worked on a few video games that a lot of people recognize, and I eventually worked on a couple crowdfunded games, and I found that I was a producer, which in non-game terms is basically a project manager overseeing tasks on engineering and art and development. And while it's incredibly tedious, but it's incredibly rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
But the part that I found that I enjoyed the most was actually doing community management. And my wife was the one who actually introduced me to Clash of Clans, actually.
No way, that's awesome.
It's actually kind of, I mean, they kind of know me as a storyteller here, so if you don't mind
I don't mind at all. Really, that's what they know me as on my channel, so we'll get along just fine.
So we'll have both of us with the gift of gab.
Absolutely.
So, when I had first met my wife, she will call herself a non-gamer. She doesn't play video games, but every morning I would see her checking her mobile phone, like playing some game. I had no idea what it was at the time. I came from a PC environment. My brother's the console. He works in the console industry. I worked in PC gaming. So the idea of a mobile game was just, there was some inherent prejudice there. Totally PC master race kind of thing.
Yep.
But every day she was checking this game that she's like, oh, I'm in a clan war now. Oh, I've got to go attack this base. Oh, I'm being attacked. And I had no idea what she was talking about until finally one day I'm like, what are you playing? And by this point we'd been dating for about 2-3 months. And she's like, oh, it's Clash of Clans. I'm like, oh, that's that mobile game by a company Supercell, right? Because I knew the industry. Mm-hmm. And I think by like month 4, you're like, you know what? You're playing it. I want to play it with you. And then she started telling me that she's been playing the game for like 4.5 years. She used to be in some of like the top competitive clans.
Whoa! Do you want a name dropper?
I know. No.
Okay, all right.
She wouldn't like it if I did.
Be outed as the wife of the Supercell employee.
And so that kind of gave me a good environment to really learn the game, and I fell in love with it. And in fact, when Clash Royale came out, the gaming studio that I was working at the time, development on the game we were working on halted for a week. It actually stopped for a week while everybody, all the way up to the CEO, were playing Clash Royale.
Man, that's pretty cool, pretty wild, pretty sad for the other game though.
I mean, when it comes to PC games, 1 week doesn't really do a lot of development, okay. But it just, as a story context, it was still pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
And one day, I felt like I'd plateaued in the industry. I really was kind of burnt out on production when I was, sitting playing the game on a Saturday evening, and I saw in-app in the inbox that they were looking for a community manager for Clash of Clans. I turned to my wife and said, or at the time my fiance, I said, is this something that you would be okay with going for? Like, would you be okay if I applied for this? And she looked at me with this big smile. She's like, that would be a dream come true. So I, sent in my application, put together a portfolio of all the community stuff that I've done for other games. And I didn't hear anything for 3 months. So I figured, it was a long shot. They've got, hundreds of applicants applying probably. So I figured, they probably found someone who was way qualified. So out of the blue, come, I want to say March, I get an email saying like, hey, we liked your application. It just took them a while to get through all of the resumes that they had. And, given that I was in California and the first few interviews were by phone. So I had to do, during the week, phone interviews at midnight after a full workday, where I'm working from like 9 a.m. to sometimes 8 or 9 p.m. working on game development. So I'm exhausted, and then have to do an interview at midnight. So I figure, I'm just gonna, I'll take the first one and wing it and see if it's something that, one, is there really for me, it's always about the culture match. Is there a personality match with the people that I want to work with? And that first interview went amazing. I mean, like, I had a great time. Then I did a Skype interview with Jonas and Marika. Anna was away I think she was in Germany for some kind of Clash event. And just literally just one interview after another, and one every week. And finally, I was expecting the rejection when I get an email saying, we want to fly you and your wife out to Helsinki to meet with Ilka, the CEO, and go through the final rounds of interviewing. And so I flew out here at the end of March. It was still, the harbor by the office was frozen over, still covered in ice. I mean, it was beautiful. We just fell in love with Finland. We flew back to the States after that interview, and I was still again thinking like, and it came down to myself and one other person from what I understand. I don't know who that person is. And I thought, all right, it was a great interview. I had a lot of fun, but let's not get our hopes up. And I get an email, and the subject of the email was regarding your interview. And I'm expecting like, okay, here's the reasons why we didn't go for you, which is, because I've interviewed at tons of different game studios, and it usually kind of starts like that. And the email said, we wanted to give you a job offer. Here are the details. And I remember at midnight just doing this victory dance around my apartment. My roommate at the time, he's a 3D artist at another game studio. So he came out cheering. My wife was crying. And it just kind of whirlwinded for there. We got married in April, and then I arrived here in May.
Wow.
While she was still back home. So we were married for 2 weeks before I left.
Talk about a life change, huh?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was a very life-altering moment, and it's been that way the entire time. It's just that kind of dynamism and energy has pretty much carried through even just working here. I mean, it's like that here, where it's just every day it's just something new, something exciting, something interesting, and there's never a dull moment.
That is so cool. I'm sure all the listeners right now are living vicariously through you, working for a game that, you started casually playing kind of to impress a girl. And then next thing you know, they're there at the headquarters. It must be surreal.
There are times where I'll come home and, my wife, and she brought her youngest stepson with her, who's 13. So he's taking a couple of tours around the office, and I'll come home and my wife will, lay down next to me, and she'll just tell me, she's like, I can't believe we live in Helsinki and you work for Supercell. She's like, this, you have no idea how much of a dream come true. This is an amazing experience. And I feel like every mistake that I ever made has led to this moment.
That is so cool, and I love the way you put that. It just I think that it's honestly, not to get too cheesy, but I think it's a valuable kind of lesson out there that you'll never know where this road of life will take you. And congratulations again on the job, and it sounds like it's going really well for you. So congrats.
Well, I've only been here 3 months, so I haven't been able to destroy anything yet. So hopefully that stays that way.
Well, we'll ask you some tough questions, see if we can get you to destroy something. I'm just joking. No, but let's start with the most recent news that we got from you guys regarding matchmaking in Clan Wars. And I'm sure that under the hood of matchmaking, you could probably talk about it, or Jonas certainly could talk about it for hours and hours. But in a nutshell, what changes will be happening that are going to kind of fix or at least put a Band-Aid on engineered bases? Can you kind of dive into that a little bit and talk about what the differences in the new system and the old system were?
Yes. As far as the actual algorithm and the number crunching and the actual weights themselves, we won't be able to go into, and that's for proprietary reasons. Sure. We want to make sure that players try to play I guess in the spirit as much as possible. And I think if we were able to provide those numbers, that would create more gaming of the system. And that's largely what we feel engineering is trying to find out where the strengths and the weaknesses of the matchmaking system is and utilize them to their advantage. I play a lot of miniatures wargaming, like Warhammer, things like that. And, you know, even in real-time strategy games, like, you know, we call that min-maxing, trying to find out what the maximum amount of, I guess, strengths are in a metagame that allows you to, win at any cost. And I think engineering is kind of a similar, I don't want to say it's not a problem, but it's a symptom of a system that allows something like that to happen. So what the new matchmaking system does, where, how can I phrase this in a manner that's, so one of the things I said is that it matches total weights, in that it'll look at total offense and total defense, where before it was very defense heavy. And I think that was very obvious in the way people are building their bases. This one is going to make it much more evenly weighted across the board. Now, I can't go into, how much does the Warden have weight? How much does, the Eagle artillery have weight? But it's going to try and find a base that has weight of equal of how do I phrase this? It's going to try to find a clan with similarly weighted bases.
Okay, and now is it looking at the individual bases and trying to match you with somebody else, like on an individual level, and then as a collective saying this is the closest match? Or is it more of like every base is kind of put together on one clan and every base is kind of put together on the other clan, and then they have like an overall clan weight, or is it an individual matching? If that makes sense.
It's more of it's more of a clan weight. Okay. Like trying to match individual bases will result in hour-long search times.
Okay.
And and there is a constraint of time as well. If it doesn't find something perfectly matched, it will find another clan that will be the next closest thing possible. So, and this is why I said we built a certain degree of flexibility into it. That if we find that searches are taking too long, we can kind of reduce how strictly the algorithm applies, and therefore searches will happen a little bit faster.
Yeah, and everybody's been, I know that number has changed over the years since Clan War, was brought into the game. And I know a lot of clans, such as my own, for a long time, we would kind of reset the war searches after a certain amount of time so we could try to get that pinpoint precise match to another clan. Does that still work? It sounds like it does. And if so, are you at liberty of sharing that number where the parameters start to widen or expand?
That's actually good. And that's something I actually don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a sweet spot as far as how long something takes, or if that's just something that's a placebo effect.
Okay.
I don't know if it's just something that happened to be, if you cancel and click search again, maybe a clan was online at that time, or maybe a clan became available after finishing a clan war right at that moment.
Yeah.
So given how many different clans there are and how many players there are, I mean, there may be some placebo effect behind that.
That's true.
The idea of, what was a funny one, that if you click next 4 times, or if you enter like a different global chat channel, that you'll more likely find a ban.
Guilty as charged, Darian. I did that for a while when I was trophy pushing.
From what I understand, some of that is placebo.
Yes.
So as far as, like I said, as far as a sweet spot, I'm not really sure if there is one. It will have an effect on clans that are much more focused on a part, I guess, either defense or offense. The idea is, and this is where I said that we don't want to invalidate anybody's particular play style. That we didn't simply, I mean, if someone wanted to build a base that was, low on defense, high on offense, we wanted people to be able to either play against similarly matched clans, I guess.
Okay.
It's not really an accurate way of saying it. It's not like we wanted to just strictly pair engineered clan versus engineered clans. We just wanted to make sure that the pairings were much more even when it comes to the weights of offense versus defense.
Okay. I mean, I think that you you answered that question, you shed a little bit more light onto, the new system versus the old system. I guess just as a final question, you did mention about matchmaking that if two clans are both engineered clans and they go against each other, they're more apt to get matched now under the new system, it sounds like.
If the total weights are much more closer in total closer to one another, then more likely that you will have them fighting against each other. Like the idea is we want to remove, a clan war that has, let's say one clan is, a series of Town Hall 9s and 10s, where all of a sudden, they're getting paired up against, an entire clan of Town Hall 11s. The idea is that's what we're trying to avoid here.
Okay.
Now, will those clans of Town Hall 11s be paired up against a bunch of clans that are Town Hall 11s? That depends on how they've got everything weighted out, but they're more likely to encounter each other.
Okay. And I imagine you'll continue fine-tuning that as time goes on as well.
We always, and that's the thing. Let me offer a little bit of clarification here. This is not a brand new algorithm. It's not something that we rewrote from scratch, but we did add additional variables, and the algorithm has been tweaked over time. This is why sometimes there maybe seem a higher number of engineered clans versus one that sometimes there aren't. Is that we may see that there is a symptom of something or a cause of something, and something may be tweaked. It may reduce it, or may have an unintended effect of actually increasing the number of engineered clans because of some variable that we didn't foresee. This one gave us a little more direct control over that.
Okay. That's a fair answer. I like that you guys continue to tweak and adjust depending on what direction the community is going. That does make sense. Moving on from engineered bases and stuff like that, which I'm really happy that you guys did something about that in terms of the tweaking and stuff. And I'm really happy that you guys kind of came out and shared that with us. It's nice to know, even though you can't share all the numbers, it's nice to know when these changes are taking place. That way we're not always kind of in the dark between that fog that separates us as the community base in Supercell at times.
One of the reasons why I was brought on board here was to be kind of that communicator. Now, that's something new that they've never really tried before here. So I think I would love to have much more transparent patch notes as far as what's being changed in the game when a patch comes out. Down to the percentage of if a unit has X% health increase, X% damage decrease. That's the kind of stuff I would love to be able to provide. It's stuff that we're working on. It's just more about just making sure that the formatting is done right, the communicating is done right, and we obviously want. There's going to be some PR speak when we deliver information like that, just because I'm talking on behalf of a corporation and a game studio, so we want to make it as professional as possible. So there's going to be some learning as we go along. But I think in the end I think more communication is going to really help the game out.
Awesome. I do too. I'm really excited to hear about that, and I think that. So far you're being incredibly transparent, way more than I've ever seen, so I'm so thrilled about this. Next question. Let's talk about builder base for a second. Do you have, I know you can't share all the future update plans that you guys talk about, because some of them, you stick with and develop, and some you trash and throw out, but in terms of, let's just talk about quality of life additions to the builder base. Is there going to be something, like friendly battlers or something? I think that would really be popular in the community if they were added on the builder base side. Are you guys working on more quality of life type stuff coming in builder base, or are you just focused on the main base? How do you kind of parcel out your time there?
That's a tough one. Well, I'd say nothing is off the table when it comes to the builder base. But it's new. It's only been out for a couple months now. Friendly battles, clan wars, that's stuff that we've looked at. It's not anything that's directly in development right now. I know we've got a lot of new content coming for it with the Builder Hall 7 and so forth. But as far as actual future content beyond that, I'd say let's wait and see on that. And then the reason, and I hate giving that kind of answer, is because I want to be very clear that we want to focus on the main town hall for a while before we go back to the builder base. So we've got some content for the builder base in store, which is stuff that people are already familiar with, that we've already discussed in the past. But after that, we know that the town hall is very much in need of some love and attention.
Yeah,
So before we start really doing some prototyping and some, changing how the builder base functions, I think the town hall needs some love first.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that, because I'm a regular, similar to your girlfriend, now wife. I've been playing for almost 5 years now, and I love my classic village. I'm warming up a little bit to builder base, but still I'm not there yet. So I'm happy to hear about that. Do you guys have like big feature ideas in future updates that you're kind of working on the main builder base, or is it more just kind of new troops, like smaller but semi big type stuff? Just a little casual question there, Darian. No big deal.
I mean, we're obviously in the middle of the 5-year Clash anniversary.
Yes.
And I mean, I love doing fun little content, seasonal content like that. Every year I've always looked forward to, whether it's the anniversary stuff with the 1 gem boost, the Christmas stuff, I'm a big Halloween person, so I love the Halloween content. But as far as like hardcore core content, we're working on stuff, but we're not ready to unveil anything just yet.
Okay.
And that part of that is just the nature of development. When we start generating feature lists of what we want to do, it's very common for features to get cut. And especially since, with as passionate and dedicated the players are in Clash of Clans, one of the things I'd hate to say is like, hey, we're working on this with this feature and this ability and this, this mechanic, and then knowing that either whether it's technologically we just don't have the time to implement it just yet, or we find that there may be a bug with something that requires our focus before we launch a feature, and so therefore we either have to delay a feature. We want to avoid having that kind of disappointment, and because it not only is it disappointing to the players, it's disappointing to us when we have to cut a feature, especially when something that we worked on or something that we really like to see in the game. But we do have some content that we're working on. There's a bunch of new stuff that we would like to do, whether it's fixing clouds in the engineer or clouds in the higher leagues.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is, and then it's something I've commented on the forums as well. There is no easy solution to it, because no matter what, there's always going to be a pro and there's always going to be a consequence to any of these solutions. So it's which one's going to have the least minimal amount of negative impact on the players. But as far as future content, we're not stopping developing the game just because we did the builder base.
Yeah.
And every now and then we'll do a builder base update and maybe a new feature for it, and then we'll do something for the town hall. We may occasionally do something simultaneous between at the same time. I don't know of any content that is going to encapsulate both of them at the same time, at least not yet. But
who knows?
Yeah, we're not stopping working on the main game.
That's great to hear. Another just a random follow-up question, but you got me thinking about we're not stopping developing the regular base, and it just got me thinking about Town Hall 11 and how much hype there was around that to be like the really huge update at ClashCon back 2 years ago now. I'm wondering, do you think that Town Hall 12, 13, 14, 15, like if this game stays around, do you just see it naturally progressing in terms of Town Hall levels, or do you not know yet?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think I've been here long enough to really comment on whether if that's. Me personally, I like seeing new content. That's always one of my driving forces in playing a game, whether it is playing a board game or a PC game or a console game. If I get to the very end of it, or even if I'm almost at the end of it and new content comes out, it gives me something to strive for. So do we do more content beyond Town Hall 11, or do we take the game in a radically different direction, or do we add more solo content? That's stuff that it depends on ultimately what value does it give to the player, and not just end game players.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, yes, I know the clouds needs fixing. Yes, I know that when someone's maxed out on Town Hall 11, where do they go from there? What's the end game beyond that? And we have to look at that as well. But we also have to look at what can we do for the majority of the player base. If someone's been playing, let's say, for 3 years and is only at Town Hall 9 or Town Hall 8, is there any value on ad? Do they get something from Town Hall 12 if that's something we decide to do? Is that something that would bring them value? And that's just one of the small questions that we have to ask ourselves when we create new content. Do we want to create content specifically for the end game players? We would love to, but in what form does that come?
That's great insight there to the mind. You know, it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is, I guess, you know. But I am with you, though. I think there is inherent value to the mid game or the casual player just in adding more end game content, even though, you know, people will whine and complain about, hey, where's the Town Hall 5 content? Every update's for Town Hall, you know, 11 or whatever. But at the same time, I'm in the same boat as you, where I've always enjoyed that. Like, I've always enjoyed not being even close to the top of the game, but striving and say, oh, someday I just might be a Town Hall 11 or something like that. I've always enjoyed that part of gaming. But moving on from the update in the builder base, I need to ask you about Supercell, especially in Clash of Clans, commitment to fair play, specifically like third-party apps. So I know that's been something that you guys came out, you know, maybe over a year ago, certainly, and said that you're really going to start banning people and onward. So where do things stand now? Outside looking in, it seems like there was a huge dip and fair play really started to rise to the top. And then lately it's kind of, you know, who knows? Like I said, what do I know? But it seems like it's kind of murky again. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the challenges in that endeavor and where you guys are right now?
Absolutely. This is actually a place I'm very familiar with. And there's a phrase that I like to use that, and it's a very cliche one, that anytime, you know, you build a better mousetrap, the universe will always build a better mouse.
Yes.
And that's very much true when it comes to modding and, you know, third-party programs where people try to, whether it's cheat the game or take advantage of systems, or, you know, it's hacking into other players' accounts. We do have certain safeguards in place, but one of the things that I posted on the forums about was, you know, we can't look at these things individually on a case-by-case basis. And the reason behind that is that it gives mod creators the ability to pinpoint what it is that we are detecting. So for example, if, let's say, you know, one player decides to download a mod thinking that it's going to give him this advantage, and, you know, we can look at the logs and say, oh, you know, this is what did it. We close that loophole in the code. And as soon as we ban that account, if we just do that one individual account, that mod generator, that mod author will be able to say, all right, this is what they found. I know how to change it so it doesn't get detected by this. And so it becomes an iteration war, but it's on a very, very quick evolutionary scale. Whereas if we can get a bunch of them simultaneously and do a mass ban, that slows them down a little bit because they can't pinpoint with accuracy exactly what it was that got them caught. So, but eventually they do figure out. Mod authors are very, very clever. They're very intelligent people. I just wish they would use their powers for good instead of evil. So we do take fair play very seriously. I mean, I think any game studio that has a successful game has to, because that fairness and that fair play policy is a foundation on which the players can, you know, enjoy a game and not have to worry about, you know, consequences to their account for enjoying the game fairly. So, yeah, like I said, you know, one of my favorite mottos is, you know, build a better, or there is an old saying, you know, build a better mousetrap and the world will be the path to your door, which, you know, was originally attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson, but the actual quote was kind of unknown. And when, in our case, you know, we try to build a better mousetrap, or in our case, the friendly octopus, that will, you know, catch hackers and modders. It's a never-ending attempt to stay one step ahead. So what can we do? And I say we collectively as players and developers, you know, having a, you know, clever cephalopod on the side of the players notwithstanding, being able to detect players using mods is only a very small part of the equation of ensuring, you know, a fair and enjoyable experience. Having players report is incredibly valuable to us. And this is where a lot of the disconnect can come from. And especially, I've been in customer support for a game studio, so I know what it's like when players report, you know, oh, I think this person was hacking, or I think this person was modding. And one of the things that players have to look at is, one, we don't know if that player is, you know, a rival mod author trying to get another one of their rival mods banned. We don't know
Hmm.
if that. We don't know if the person reporting it is, maybe they just thought they saw a hack, or maybe it was a glitch on their device. So the only thing, and the thing is, because our player support, they don't look into the code directly themselves. We have systems that do that. So that's why the report is, when the reply is, thank you for reporting this. We'll investigate it, and we do investigate every single one of these, but we'll never give a reply as to, oh yeah, we banned this person for you. Thank you for reporting this.
Sure, sure.
Because again, it could be a mod author looking to pinpoint where some of these vulnerabilities are.
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you, just to take this one step further, you look at CWL, which I know you're aware of based on our previous conversations, and
Mhm.
you look at basically, the biggest ever community-run competitive league for Clash of Clans, and they had so much inner turmoil and drama all around this one topic, modding. And people, what do they do as a community and an organization to people who are caught cheating, even if they're already banned? What advice would you give people out there, whether it be administrators in CWL or whether it just be a co-leader or a leader in a clan of somebody who gets suspended or banned? Like, is that totally up to? Obviously, it's up to the individual. But how would you suggest us as a community kind of react and deal with these bans if they happen to one of our clanmates or somebody in a league that we're in? Should the whole clan be kicked? How do you feel? What do you feel about that?
That's a tough one,
Yeah.
because one, the Clash community is pretty good at policing itself,
Hmm.
and that's one of the things I've noticed. And I've seen some very toxic game communities before. So and that was one of the things that was a selling point for me to come to Supercell, was just how self-policing the community is when it comes to, people partaking in, I guess, less than ethical activities.
Hmm.
Now, as far as if, should you ban the entire clan or just individual player, or I guess, context is everything. How does the clan leader really know? Are they truly aware of, um, one person, ruining it for everybody else? If you mean, obviously, if you see multiple players doing it, again, we have to look at the context. I don't think there is a black and white answer to this,
Hmm.
and I don't want to feel like I'm kind of sidestepping a direct answer, but and I think this kind of ties into, I think one of the questions you had about the CWL with me is, it's a very self-policing organization that, Supercell does not directly, I guess, we're not directly involved in, or we're not, what's the word I'm looking
Yeah, you're
for?
not. It's not your event. It's the community event.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think if the organization itself is doing a good job of policing, then I think the quality of the games will be apparent.
Hmm. That's a fair answer, honestly. I don't feel like you sidestepped it at all. I feel like it's definitely it's a tricky situation. There's no doubt about it. But it kind of bummed me out to see all the drama going on all about this subject. So I guess there is no perfect answer or solution to it. But moving on to, I guess, happier things on
Well,
this. Oh
do
yeah,
you mind if
sure.
I add one more thing
Of
to that?
course not.
So I think one of the things that Supercell can do is just constantly, try to improve our detection systems. So as long as we're constantly trying to step up and making sure that we're not being lax about our detection,
Hmm.
always looking for new ways to detect how cheaters are using mods and hacks to take advantage of the system. Again, it's always going to be a cat and mouse game. It's always going to be, as soon as we make two steps forward, they're going to make one, we're going to have to take one step back because they've advanced their systems.
Sure.
So as long as we're being vigilant about it, and as long as we're being, clear on what our policy is and our stance on it, and as long as the organizations that are hosting leagues are vigilant and making sure that they, show that there are consequences for this kind of behavior, I think that's some of the most you can do as an organization and as a company, that puts out a product. But ultimately, there's going to be always people who try to take advantage of the system. But I think there are ways we can. Well, there's always more we can do to minimize that.
Sure. No, that's definitely well received. That's my one concern is if esports kind of really does take hold in Clash of Clans moving forward, what can you guys at Supercell do to kind of, help remedy the situation before it arises? And I guess right now you've kind of already answered that, but I guess kind of transitioning a little bit, what do you see as my last question for you? I know you've been so generous with your time. Thank you. In the CWL, for example, obviously it is a community-run organization. Do you ever see Supercell maybe creating some sort of a competitive league type system, or an actual league similar to CWL that is under their banner rather than a community driven, where you guys are the administrators? I know you have a small team, so I'm asking a lot of you guys, but where do you see the future of esports and Clash of Clans, or do you not even see it? How do you stand on that right now?
Now, there's two different perspectives on that. Like, something that I would like to see, and I would love to see, like, if Supercell ever got into like an esports level of competition for our games. I would like to see kind of like how, I guess, MMA works, where there's smaller circuits everywhere, and building up to, like a championship circuit where these different smaller leagues all around the globe, whether it's Clash of Clans or Brawl Stars or Clash Royale, all building up to a Supercell official championship to prove who the best in the world is. Now that would be,
That'd be so cool.
It would be, when you look at other games that have these global competitions with a lot of money involved for cash prizes, and and really show who these top players are. But one of the things I like about the way the current system is, like with the CWL, is that these are community-run events, and you ask, are we open to supporting them? Is we don't support them. They're largely self-policing organizations, and we may offer some assistance in, for example, with the CWL Season 2 finals. We were kind of there in the background. I actually got to watch the finals live, and that was a really intense game. That was a tense war all the way to the end. I mean, it was neck and neck.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But I don't see why Supercell needs to be involved with those. But I don't think that's a question for me to be able to answer. I think that's something much more from a I guess a higher up corporate standpoint or company standpoint is, do we see a value in being much more or do we see a value in creating our own kind of league for it? And if there is, how do we organize all these other leagues to fall under it? Or is that something that we want? Is that the way it'll necessarily evolve into? I know esports is really huge on a global level, where before it was very localized on certain genres of games, where a lot of other gaming companies are looking at how can they get involved in esports. And I'm glad to see it evolving into an actual competitive environment. I would love to see a Clash of Clans evolve into an esport. But like anything else, it's, what's the end goal for it? What is the objective? What is it that Supercell can offer, I guess, in creating some kind of league that these other leagues don't already offer, apart from, saying that it's from Supercell?
Yeah, I guess just, similar to what Clash Royale is doing with the CCGS, which the Crown Championship Global Series, where basically, they're offering a very high level of production, which was similar to the finals of CWL Season 2 and Season 1. So you can make the case you're already doing that. But of course, there is also $1 million prize pool, which is, a big contribution that I don't think the community could do in the Clash of Clans side. So, I mean, the intent of the question wasn't just how much money could you put behind a league, but, I guess that would be they're hiring someone to be administrators and also pay the players,
Right. And I mean, the same thing is, if we were to do this globally, would we have to hire an international esports team? And having that kind of coordination between, not just for Clash of Clans, but for Clash Royale, I mean, is that something we wanted to do for Brawl Stars, Boom Beach, or any other future game in development?
Heyday.
I was going to say,
who can build their crops the fastest or something. I don't know. Much love to Heyday. No hate. No hate.
my wife got addicted to Heyday. Really? Actually, when we were actually in Helsinki, she was waiting for me in the hotel while I was on my interview, decided to download Heyday, and absolutely is hooked on it now. And
hey, it's never too late, right?
When I told that to the Heyday team, they were like, finally, another one. We got another one. Another one bites the dust. I'm like, no, she still plays Clash.
Would you believe, sorry to interrupt, would you believe that from what I've told, from what I hear from everybody who I talk to, that the Heyday community is some of the most passionate out of all the Supercell games, like most, you know, vocal, I guess is a better way to put it. And I was shocked by that. I just figured it was all like, you know, no offense any Heyday players, but I figured it was like moms, you know, or kids just casually playing, but they're really serious and hardcore about Heyday. Apparently.
Oh yeah. The neighborhood derbies are incredibly competitive, and that blew me away.
Yes. Me too. But yeah, that was one of my big takeaways when I first visited Supercell, is just see how many Heyday people are so passionate about the game. It was crazy.
It's a fun game. I do love my Sims. That's one of my favorite genres.
Yep, me too. I played a game called Sim Hotel back in the day. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it was
I'm a child of the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
I played all of Sim Earth,
Me
Sim
too.
Ant,
Me too. All
Elfish.
right. Awesome.
I know my Sims.
Yep. I love Sim Hotel was like my favorite, or I don't know, Sim Tower, I think it was called. But either way,
Yeah,
I'm digressing here. Darian, you've been so kind, and I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on. Again, so generous with your time. I love that you have the gift of gab, because I do too, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. Do you have any parting words for the Clash of Clans audience out there? I don't want to put too much gravity on it, but anything to let us know before we let you go?
I guess there's a couple things. One, we're not ignoring you. We do see what the issues are. We do see, for example, like the clouds and the engineering things. So keep those comments coming. We don't take it as a negative when we see people, and we see it as people passionately trying to explain, you know, what they see as our problems with the game, and these are things that we do look at on a regular basis. So please don't get discouraged. Please keep telling us these thoughts. Keep telling us what you feel is wrong with the game. Don't ever stop doing that. And by doing that, you keep us improving the game. It may not be, you know, there's never going to be a way to please every single person in exact every single way, but we are always trying to improve the game. So please, as a community manager, we do enjoy hearing your thoughts and even those complaints on what they feel is wrong with the game.
Awesome. I love to hear that, and again, man, I just wanted to thank you so much. It's been a true pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Ash. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll do this again.
I'd love to. So thank you so much. Again, guys, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Darian for coming on. Really loved this interview. Make sure you check out my YouTube sponsor, Bren Chong, in the description below. And that is going to do it today. So, as always, take care, guys.